It is Tuesday, June 6th, 7 p.m., and we are gathering for our Finance Committee meeting. First item on the agenda is the monthly review of the attorney fees. For March 2023, we have a total invoice of $23,090.44, of which more than half of that is labor negotiations, which we would expect given that we have, gone through a few weeks of labor negotiations there. Very small amount, $252 to Oprah request. Later in the meeting, when we go over the annual contract renewals, we will see a renewal there for the out-of-house attorney firm Porzio to continue with them for another year. And I think it remains the recommendation of the committee, and it'll be bubbling up to the full board, that, we're content with what is happening with services from out-of-house attorney versus in-house attorney, and moving along through that process. Any questions?
I have a question.
Mhm.
Have you gone out to other attorneys? And you're saying that you think the committee, I wouldn't agree because I don't know the gentleman. And I've only been working with them for like 6 months. Have you gone out and checked other attorneys in the area and see if they're cheaper? Or, he's missed a couple meetings, and he sent somebody that really didn't know what he was talking
Well,
about.
it's
The
from
one
their
older
firm.
gentleman. Excuse me?
From their firm, so it's not, we
Right.
don't hire Mr. Gagliardi, we hire the firm.
Right, but still, did you go out and check other firms to represent?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't know that they're the same as like an auditing firm because of sort of the intimacy. They were hired like 3-4 years ago.
Not by this board.
Not even by,
But it doesn't mean we have to keep them. If we can find somebody that has a good reputation that's cheaper.
do you have any recommendations?
I have a couple that I know about.
Yeah, well, let us know. We're definitely would look at rates if there was some significant difference. Did we find out, Ms. Dallin, if the rates were the same or
The same
increased?
for the partner, the paralegals are $10 higher an hour.
In the new contract
In the
compared
new
to the
contract.
existing contract?
Then other people that you've
No,
checked
they
out.
have
From
contract.
last year,
From
from this
last
current
year?
year into next year, there's a $10 increase per hour for paraprofessionals.
Okay.
If I may.
Mhm.
So when we work with attorneys, I think they're not like an audit firm that just comes in and does one-time audit. I think that the relationships that you develop are very important. All of the attorneys that I work with, because I do deal with all of them, if Mr. Gagliardi is not available, have been excellent. They're immediate. Their information is available not only through verbal, but they immediately follow with email.
And the rates have been stable, which is
I think that.
kind of what would lead us to trigger a search, right? If suddenly
But
we weren't, if we weren't.
stable to surrounding districts that have
They've been
different
the same fee
attorneys?
for the last 4
4
years.
years.
Stable with them, I understand, but what about with regards to other districts around that have other attorneys? How do they rate amongst theirs when they're charging? Has anyone investigated that? That was my concern.
I believe was my understanding, if I may, the previous, because it was not this board, but the prior boards, I believe, did do an investigation. It was my understanding, just as a principal in the audience, I was not part in this way, but I believe at that time they did, and you might be able to speak more on it. I know that you aren't the business administrator. I think at the time, financially, they did do a comparisons, because I think that's how they got Porzio, if I'm not mistaken, and their rates haven't changed in 4
How
years.
many years, 4 years?
Yeah.
You've had them for 4 years?
Yes.
Previous to
At least 3,
2021.
not going with.
Who did you have before Porzio? Can I ask?
The internal.
Oh, that's right, you had Ms. Smith, internal. Mhm.
And we looked at hiring internal, we went through a whole process, and then the board decided to stay with an external in Porzio. I mean, Mr. Gagliardi hasn't missed meetings, we've been informed when he's not, it doesn't fit in his schedule.
It's conflict.
They've sent other representatives from their firm that do know our district. I mean, Mr. Bausch
I deal with all of them.
successfully negotiated the.
They're
NTA
education law
contract.
attorneys, so we're
The
getting.
last gentleman we had, the elderly gentleman, I can't remember, is that Mr. Bausch? I
Yeah.
don't know. He was very knowledgeable, very good, but there was a young gentleman that really wasn't as knowledgeable as that
He's
gentleman.
very knowledgeable in the day-to-day.
He's quite exceptional. That's Mr. Gisler, and I think what happened was,
incredible.
I think for the particular issues at hand, that some questions, because we're a very unusual public forum, unlike many other districts, I think, when they ask certain questions. But I deal with him not daily, because I try and keep my costs down. I try and make the decisions without them, but when I have to deal with them, he's exceptional. We deal with him on a regular
Okay,
basis.
I mean, I just don't know them, you
Yeah,
know,
well,
as
you know,
well as you guys.
And
do,
I
so-
think as a person at the helm currently, I do have concerns about just starting with someone new. If they did raise their rates, I would agree 100%.
So how much?
I apologize.
So I just think that I don't think that, going for an attorney is kind of like hiring an audit firm.
Right.
We've developed a relationship with this attorney firm, and I think that that's important when you're working, you know, with attorneys, and the attorney does work for the board, which is one of the reasons I think that the board decided to go with an outside firm, not so much a firm that's living in the board office. Because it, you know, no offense to the two administrators here, but the board does, the lawyer doesn't work for them. The
Correct.
lawyer works for the board.
again, I think-
Yeah, I believe in the outside firm. I don't believe
And I
in the
think
internal.
a significant increase in rates would
Would-
do the
would
same
stop
thing
us
like
if
we
we-
did with the
yeah,
audit firm, where
right.
we would maybe look
But
around.
we haven't seen
but-
that. and
Okay,
we've had
just
great
asking because I don't know the
relationships. That's
history
fine,
like
but
you guys do, and I just was, you know, going over it and just wondering, you know, if anything else was looked at, so every little penny helps, so. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is monthly review of the bill list. So on this one, it was,
Karen, I know, I'm sorry,
go ahead.
I know that you have mentioned in passing before about the toner.
Yeah.
I just happened to, like, it
I
kind of.
know we
stuck
are
out
using a
to me.
consortium and they are
So
strategic
just-
pricing.
I'm just wondering, like, okay, we're using a consortium, but,
There's 8 schools plus the
Should have seen it before.
district office.
okay, so let me, so I want to ask a question, right? So what is the, what are we printing? What are we copying? What are we, you know, now I personally, and I can only go for me personally, at this stage of the game, since my daughter turned 18, I get 2 copies of her IEP printed. They're this thick. I have that available to me in Genesis that we pay for. Is it the state law that says I have to have 2 paper copies, one for the 18-year-old, who I'm her legal guardian, so really she shouldn't get a copy? Why are we, you know, why? I get this, so I'm not printing all of these documents
A
and.
lot of it
everything.
is,
And to me, do we need to, like, is this something we should be going to the legislator about and saying, hey, fix this law so we don't have to print all this crap? Or, pardon my French, oh my God, I'm sorry, I forgot I'm on recording. But you know, to me, you know, why are we printing all this stuff? Why do we have all this stuff?
Can I just give you context a little bit?
Sure,
So when Mr. Feldman came on board a couple years ago, I believe he's probably cut our toner expense
huge.
pretty close to half to
Okay.
50%.
It was worse than this.
And I, there certainly is a lot of printing, but I think part of this is it's expensive. So you're familiar with Oak Tree. So the printers in Oak Tree have 5 cartridges. Each cartridge is $250.
and that, I do
You know what I
know
mean?
where,
So,
yeah.
so it's just, yes, there's a lot of printing, but it's expensive, period. He has, we monitor
All the schools.
frequency in printing. We know who's printing a lot. Again, there's been a reduction in the printing as well as a reduction in the cost, like he's found consortiums to purchase them. But also, as we acquire copy machines, we can print to a copier as opposed to print to a printer. Printing to a copier is, and he has it, say it's a quarter cent per sheet instead of a cent per sheet. So those are little tweaks that he's making along the way.
Right.
But if and we've talked about adjusting printing and pulling, changing printers or getting rid of some printers and stuff. But if the infrastructure for the copy machines isn't ready to accept that, then we have a whole nother issue. So, he is making incremental steps to address that, but it is going to be, I think it's probably in any office. I don't know what your
Yeah.
office looks like or whatever, but it's,
I run a paper-free environment.
and there's certainly less printing here than there is in any other location.
Yep.
In the sense that probably per capita, there's still printing here. There's more people here than any other building, but, it's certainly,
See, here I would think it would be less because the kids are using the iPads and you're much more tech savvy at a granular level with
Right.
the students than you would be in the lower grades. But-
right, but there's 300 staff members here and there's 100 at
Right.
Barclay. So they may print the same, but they're printing more at Barkley per person than here. But certainly less printing here than,
What's the time frame for this? Is this a bulk order that covers a large time, or is this just
We
one
see
month?
these most months in excess of $20,000, I would say.
yeah, and I can ask him the details of when he puts his order in relative to like, we don't keep a huge inventory of it either, because again, it's,
And it goes
sometimes you,
stale,
a
dries
printer
out,
breaks, yeah.
needs
And
Special humidity control, or
Correct.
have light, yeah.
But I'll ask him how
So do
frequently,
we, all right, so let me ask you a question. That would be great to find out, like, what the time frame is.
yeah, I mean, I see these come through too. I have to
But
go
do
through.
we have like a copier contract where we have the same copy machine in every building and it does the same, and we have, like, I know in my business, we use Konica, and we have something on there called Secure Print. So you send it to the printer, and it only prints when you go up there. So how many times you send something to the printer, it prints, and it sits there. We used to have this problem, and then you waste all this paper, and you waste all this toner, and it's gone, and no, you know, nobody goes, because you forgot, or you printed 3 times. Like, and part of the whole package, and I don't know what it would cost or what that would be like, but part of the whole package is they replace the toner, they come in, they're on a schedule, they're there. I mean, and we're talking, we use the same print, you know, the same machines in 12 hospitals across the, you know, it was obviously, you know, with a lot more volume, but have we thought ever about something like that from a business perspective of, you know, getting rid of machines that are old and decrepit and not working, or, you know, and
I'm
going.
smiling because I have to smile because I've been here for so long that getting a copy machine is like praying to God. So everything, no, you're absolutely right, but our printers are so antiquated. We're smiling, we're laughing because our printers are so antiquated. We literally wait until they can no longer use. We actually saved one in the middle school in a space in the basement so we could use it for the parts for the one in the main office. That's how bad it
Penny-wise
is.
and dollar foolish,
Yeah.
because the.
Yeah, but you're absolutely right, that
cost
if you
to run
had
is
that
more.
quality, if you had that
I mean,
consistency,
it
and we're
doesn't-
not there.
Well, so.
Are they
doesn't cost
leased?
to have
Is
companies
your
come in
equipment
and-
leased? You purchase them? Because isn't it sometimes, because that's, when I worked at Rutgers, we had the same thing with our machine. We would send it, and of course, you know, I'd be laying out everybody's stuff, trying to find mine.
Yeah.
But I think we leased them, I'm not, yeah, we leased it, and then if we needed something, they came in and fixed it, because it was part of our lease.
So we do have a service
We
contract.
do have a service contract.
Yep, and the companies that come in, not the company, the copiers that come in are 7 machines typically, so they're a consistent piece. The old machines don't have the digital
Right,
print piece, but any of the new ones, it's a standard feature that's coming in, so
right.
we have purchased probably three in the past couple of years, like each year, which is a big expense, because they're
I'm
probably.
just wondering if
25
it's
grand
worth
each, but-
looking into
Yes,
revamping the
Could we
entire
do lease
district,
purchase?
getting machines that are,
You do.
You can.
getting
we got
units
6
that are,
We got
you know,
6 last year?
all up to, like, the whole place is up to
Yep.
date.
I know
Listen,
about that one.
our budget may not be able to afford it at this point, but I think we, you know, if we're looking at this kind of a bill for toner on a frequent basis, are we being penny wise and pound foolish and not,
Right.
you know?
And I think what happens is every year, I know just being the person that was told no, like being the principal, now I tell the people no. I think every year, you're right, I know, lots, I tell them no a lot. I think what has happened is the penny wise dollar foolish is so true, but we don't have the dollar.
Right, and I am
No,
well
I know.
aware of that. I've gone
But I
through-
think
Sounds like it's transitioning slowly.
Yes, we
Like,
have been doing that. We
Still
bought 6,
taking care of
we
this.
bought 6 last year. And the other thing that we started to, it's funny you brought this up because we have had 45-minute conversations just about toner. Because I look and go, what? So what we're starting to have the conversations, and we didn't want to, we thought it was appropriate maybe, because we started doing some other things with auditing, coming very tight and very controlled in a positive way. You know, what do you need? What do you need? We think that we're going to start to have those conversations as well about the copying. So it'll be a conversation to have with our principals and to then have those conversations with their
I
teachers.
was even thinking just as much as, you know, the agendas for our meetings. You know, why not have, and I don't know, maybe Mr. Morales could do this, but why not have a scan it barcode there? People could barcode scan the agenda from a piece of paper up there with the little thing,
If they-
and they could have it on their phone and they could just do it, and then we're not we're not wasting paper, we're not printing toner, we're not using toner to print all that stuff, and it's there. Still leave a couple of paper copies for those who don't wanna
They'll say
do
we don't
that,
have
but why not a scan and barcode, and then you just delete it from your phone when you're done? It's a public document to begin with.
We could say we're only providing 20, and the first 20 get a paper copy.
Well, I mean,
No,
we could,
I like,
you know, we scan it for it, right? Didn't we do? a
We
scan?
got used to it with menus.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you go to a restaurant, you gotta have your phone, you gotta scan it.
We could try it.
Scan it at
Why
the
not?
board tonight.
And didn't we do?
And the
didn't-
the poor woman who was in charge was trying, had my phone for 10 minutes. She said, it's not working, it's not scanning. I said, I think I need to update my phone. But I mean,
You gotta
she
make the
tried.
brightness, you gotta make the brightness. that's
And
the-
remember, I was sitting next to you with a hard
Yes,
copy.
which
She
I
said-
loved reading.
I gave it to her, but she was trying with my phone and I'm going, never mind, don't even worry about it. And if I ask my children, they'll all start saying, what the heck, you don't know how to do it? It just wouldn't take it. So I do need,
Try, I kinda like the idea of trying it at a board meeting.
I think that's a great idea.
Well, thank you.
I do, I think it's a great idea. Mr. Ronaldo will make it happen.
I can
there's
handle
a
it.
lot of ways.
Well, yeah,
I mean, you could print it at home if you want, you could pull it up on your phone. I think.
I think it's an excellent
Council
idea.
doesn't give out their agendas at their meetings.
Who doesn't?
Council,
No,
town
council.
council.
They say it's available online or,
Online, yeah.
It's available online, yeah.
yeah, if there's no OPMA reason.
I actually
They're
think that we
right.
should, probably shouldn't have any, the problem is though, if we have paper copies, but we don't have enough, who determines when the enough is? You see what I'm saying? So if we
Well,
have,
again, it depends what the act requires. If it just requires accessibility, that's
it just
different,
requires,
but-
I believe it's just an
Yeah.
accessibility,
It's
but we can
like,
double check.
it's like the bill list. We always have, don't we provide the bill list, but only one copy? Don't-
That's-
There's
I think
always
there is
one
only
desk
one up
copy
there.
up there.
That's copy. yeah,
Right,
that's it.
so,
Maybe we should do a desk copy of the agenda,
and then the barcode.
and then a barcode.
Yeah.
Mr. Ronaldo will make that happen.
Yes, ma'am.
Because most people who are interested are reading
Thank you,
the
sir.
agenda way before the meeting.
Oh,
Yes.
oh,
So
yes.
they're, you know, they have the information they need
Yes.
to come.
I
to the
love it.
podium.
That's thinking out of the box.
Barcode, save it, listen, I'm trying to save toner here, okay? This is crazy.
It is,
Now you're
it is
saving
crazy.
paper and toner, so
Yes.
we're
And
gonna
I
get
have
2 points
another
tonight.
question, and it just came to me the other day when I was looking at this. The school trips.
Mhm.
So I noticed, you know, we have a school trip, the purple, I love the colors, by the way, because it definitely helps me. So this particular trip was the DECA trip to Orlando, and nothing, you know, it has nothing to do with the group that went,
Right.
but when we approve these school trips and they come to us, is this, I know that we ask about like how's this being funded and stuff like that, but we never get a number. We never get stuff, and I know that the checks come to us, right? If this was a funded trip by DECA, say they funded it, I'm just using that as an example. Okay, we put this money out, but I'd like to know that we received all this money to cover the cost per se, and we don't tend to get that in these reports.
So same thing when things are paid with grant monies or whatever,
Mhm.
often we'll go, ooh, and then
Right.
the answer is, well, it was taken
Right,
care of with grant monies, and, oh, well, that makes sense.
Yeah, just, you know, listen, there's a lot, I mean, every time I see these check registers, my head spins, because there's so many. You know, but we pay a lot of bills, right? We pay a lot
Yeah,
of, spend a lot of money, so I'm
Business.
just kind of curious, there's a way we could figure out how to do that, and then,
Indicate whether the money's coming out of the direct budget or.
Could I have a
some
suggestion?
other-
I have a suggestion.
Mhm.
Could we do a quarterly, I don't know how, I don't know your area as far as how you run your reports. Could we do a quarterly report that's perhaps separated by monies received to pay for trips, monies received through grants to pay for programs? And then we could provide it during finance quarterly or every 2 months to say, oh, when you looked at the bill list. And then we could show it that way to see that the money was received. I don't know, I'm just coming up with an idea.
cause too
I
much
don't
more
know.
work.
I don't know,
for
is that, I
people,
mean, I don't know how you have it separated, so I don't know how you would do it. Well, you want to think about it.
It's just a thought, I'm not looking.
So I can speak to the larger trips a little bit only because I've been involved in those. So a lot of times when we're talking about DECA, although the particular trip you're
BLA.
referencing may not be a good example because it's a smaller number of
It's a
kids.
small trip.
Yeah, but if we were like saying when we go to Atlantic City, for example, the district's position historically has always been if there is it was akin to athletics. If the event is adjudicated, evaluated, there's some sort of competitive or qualifying variable associated with the event, the district has historically covered the cost of the door, meaning like registration and things like that, participation fees, and the cost of the certificated staff presence there. in addition to transportation to and from the event. Student participation was always on the student themselves. In large trips, like for example, in performing arts or the large DECA trips, a lot of times this comes in the form of a contract that we will sign that will have an itemized amount of money per kid, which then goes to the children saying you need to cut an X amount of dollars to come. Usually, sometimes like for band, a lot of times our chaperone costs are embedded in that, so the district doesn't even have to front other than the things that are embedded in the teacher contract. So as far as verifying that we collected, or the outside source funding has been collected, that probably could be verified in the form of an executed contract. But these smaller trips, a lot of times, these are collected and, the student activity accounts serve as a mechanism to facilitate paying for these trips. The larger the trip, though, the more likely there's going to be a singular contract that's going to cover everything from hotel, park admissions, because there's leisure associated with these trips and things like that, meal vouchers, things like that.
What if a child can't afford to go? Is there something available for that?
It's a free and reduced lunch classification that generally
okay.
tends to be our one size fits all
Okay.
qualifier for
All
that.
right, thank you.
A lot of times there are other ways to, like scholarships and things like that, that fortunately, we haven't had that issue in some time.
Okay.
So
And with regard to grants, if it's something that we are going to get reimbursed, from a grant, it would be in that grant fund, like Fund 20, which the account number would start with a 20, and that means it's.
instead of the
So
11.
we,
That was actually the other thing I was looking at this, the funds are here. I'd like a little cheat card. And I keep saying, just a little cheat card, because I can't, I know that these funds are
Can you
different, I
create a
know
cheat
that the money comes.
Oh, she's gonna give us a cheat card.
So a cheat card to me, like if I know that Fund 20 is grants and I can look and see that it says P20, then I know that money came out of grant fund.
That's
that
a great,
To start, I'm sorry.
that's creative tonight.
Elko
is just on a roll.
Ms. Bierman, if I could just add one more thing.
Yeah.
A lot, Ms. Falco, when it comes to professional leave, which in some instances we would consider, the chaperoning, or these things, whenever we approve these, any type of funding that would come from the district would be included in the My Learning Plan request, which has multi-level approvals. And that would be available to you in professional leave, in our approvals for professional leave. So a lot of times you'll see, those costs, which sometimes would include mileage, even for the teachers to get to, like, let's say the airport, if there's a travel or whatever, usually they travel with the bus. But that would be available to you for pupil by pupil or staff member by staff member basis through your approvals of professional leave.
All right, so for this period, the general bills are $644,332.76, which is what the committee will be putting forward with a recommendation to the full board to pay, approve payment on, and on the salary portion, it's, grand total for all is $9,042,744.96. So backing out the 645 or whatever is the difference. The salaries are higher this period than typical because it's the once or twice a year bulk pay of the stipends and those other than salary type numbers that are in these numbers this month. And we do expect a higher than usual addendum to come through prior to the board meeting, and particularly because it's the 2-week period between the committee and the board meeting this month. Any other questions on the bill list?
I have a question. On the rugby school, can you tell me what that is?
Certainly. It's a special education alternative school, so some of our
that's
children need
just
to go
the
there.
name of it.
Absolutely,
Oh,
that's the
okay.
actual name of it.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure.
All right. Third item on the agenda is lease purchase. Ms. Allen, did you have a handout or? And so these purchases are now, and then I don't know if it comes up multiple times a year, but items that we put in the budget that we passed the budget and now business administrator is extracting that piece out of what we're going to purchase through lease purchase. And we'll start the process of the approval to go forward for specific equipment and to do the financing.
Can you say that again? You
So-
lost me in the first.
In the budget, we approved categories that were gonna be purchased through lease purchase, so that number is $3.3 million.
Okay,
So now, because the budget has passed, we're moving forward with that next process, which is to define what that specific equipment is that we're gonna use those budget monies for.
Okay.
And the board action this month will be to approve the business administrator to go forward with the financing for those items.
okay.
So this is the business administrator's proposal for what's being presented for lease purchase for the upcoming school year.
Yes.
And on it?
So, yeah, so that is, we have the computer equipment, we have one copier this year.
One copier.
We have some happy principals, but we have only one copy.
Yes, we have, some instructional equipment, that the youth school wrestling mat and some, different equipment items, smaller items. We have a maintenance vehicle, the district-wide telephone system, which is we desperately need because this one could go.
We are the only school district in the state.
And that one still has Rod grant
Correct.
pending toward it?
Yes,
or
yes.
Approved toward it,
Yes.
pending?
Yeah.
Pending.
Pending, but we're very hopeful.
Yes, and the middle school chiller rooftop unit is in here. And buses, 6 buses and 2 vans, which we have to do every year.
It's required.
So that comes to 3.1 million. We normally do, an extra percentage in case of, if anything comes in higher. So that would be 3.3 million. Behind that is the timeline. So, the 21st, we will have a resolution, to present for approval. On the 26th of June, we would, publish in the newspaper. 12th of July, we would have the finance bid opening along with the attorney. July 19th, we would ask for board approval of the bid award resolution, and then, about August 17th, we would, expect to have the closing. So then we can begin to, spend the money, for the year.
And this is one of those things where there's usually only one
Yeah.
player, it's
Right,
TV,
many
whatever.
times there's
and
only
that's
one
it.
the last few
We
years.
pray for the one.
Mhm.
All right, any questions?
The telephone system are you looking into, or what is this for?
The whole district, we have a very ancient telephone system, which, we can't even.
You can't
We
fix,
can't
you get to wait.
Right, so but what company are you going to hire?
Mr. Tate has already done his entire exploration of looking into, what, right now we have RFP, which is what we've been utilizing, and, but they would have to go through the same bid process as
Right.
everybody else.
Okay.
So it's quite possible that we can get somebody else.
Right. Okay.
All right. Next, so any issues from the committee on recommending to the
That was
board
nice. Quick.
approval of the lease purchase? All right, cool. Next item on the agenda are annual contract renewals, which of course are again a little hefty because we're in that transition of getting ready for the new school year. I'm gonna kind of go through them quickly, indicate to me if you have a question, if you want to stop or discuss anything further. First one is Silvergate Prep, and a lot of these are gonna be, oriented toward things we need to do with, with what? IEP driven. That's the right word for it. And some of them are true expenses where it's actual monies, that's a contract that we're paying out, and then a lot of the other ones are contracts that are put and then drawn against, as and if the services are needed throughout the school year. So Silvergate Prep, the first one. Learn Well is the next one. For hospital instruction. Rutgers University Behavioral Health Care. Adolescent Inpatient Services. United Therapy Solutions. A lot of pages. I printed on my personal printer. work supports my volunteer services. Still going. United Therapy Solutions. Delta Group, or Delta T Group. And then we have a list of behavioral health care, schedule of rates and services. Epic special education staff. Beech Tree. Somewhere in here, I do have a note. And then, you know, of course, throughout the year, you'll see these vendors show up on the bill list that we put them. These are the approvals that trigger the okay to use these services. English translation services, which was for different languages when we need interpretation. CDK systems. Now, this is one of the
Yeah, I have a
software
question on
ones.
that one.
Which one? Indus?
CDK.
Okay, on CDK, this is one that we use in the finance office for, I know, the remittance on the checks and their accounting. What's your question, Mr. Payne?
I just wanted to know what it was.
Yep, that's what it was. Yep. So it's accounting software and the requisitioning software that they use now for the bill pay so that it's a little bit cleaner and less paper intensive than it used to be. So that one's $10,965 for the coming year. Genesis is another software-driven one. That's one of the student, parent,
Format.
teacher platforms for.
That's where you can put your IEPs, right in that.
That.
I am gonna ask the question.
And that one's more expensive than I thought. I remember it being, but it's $38,000 on the year. Now, that's when we were thinking of being able to phase it out, that there's a replacement
That
one
would be
coming or
one
no?
of the front line.
One of the
So
frontline phases out.
Frontline frontline RTI
Mhm.
would phase out with Lincoln.
Got it.
So
All right.
unrelated.
No, you know, Genesis would still keep,
Genesis.
because you have to have something, whether it be Genesis or whatever.
And Genesis is used K through 12. It's not just a high school thing, right?
They're fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, the parent portal is, all the parent stuff
Yeah,
is,
that's
And
the
they're
cost
way-
of one bill for the,
And they're, actually, they're way cheaper.
Yeah.
They're way cheaper than a lot of the other companies, way cheaper.
Yeah.
Oh, the
No, and you're right. If we were mailing out report cards, it'd be $38,000 easily for the
Yeah.
district.
that is correct,
Yeah.
And we did that for years.
correct. We don't do it anymore.
Thank God.
It's wonderful to come right on the Genesis.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, perfect.
So next,
Next up is the stepping
The
stone.
color stuff too. I mean, ooh, good God.
All right, next up is the one that's the discussion item, which I mentioned earlier, which was the renewal on Porzio. So there we're at $210 per hour for attorneys, which we're saying is holding from the previous
Correct.
contract, and we're moving to $155 per hour, which you said was 10 up from the previous.
$10,
contract for
correct?
paraprofessional. All other terms in the agreement are the same
Yeah.
as the previous contract.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to attorneys, so we have our Porzio group, but I know there are times when we have to hire other attorneys for ethics charges and stuff
special
that
education.
can't go through, or special education and stuff, so how do we do those contracts? Like, how do we know, like, do we have contracts with them like we have with Porzio, or?
Well, we do get those board approved every time they come up, for each case.
Okay, so we do it
And-
case by case?
Yeah,
Okay.
and they, are provided to us basically by the insurance
Insurance
company.
And when,
Oh,
every once
sure,
in,
oh, that's right.
every once in a while, we do have a few that are not covered through insurance. That are, you know, this is a conversation we've been having about it. It's part of the budget, the monies that we need, and
Yeah.
it's gotten more and more, hasn't it?
Okay,
Sure.
That's a good question.
thank you.
Next one up is vinyl
Synapse
site,
is
which is the
fine.
Blackboard K to 12, so that's we're using for,
Me.
No. on the website, the documentation, communication for
Yep.
district-wide and out into the public.
This is like our fifth company, right?
Yeah, this one for probably the longest.
The longest,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's again, it's $42,000 a year, but it does serve a, you know,
And we
a
need something,
major-
right?
It's a cornerstone of, you know, the pieces of the puzzle there. Strauss Esme, a very modest $5,000, and they're
Well
helping
needed.
manage the policy side of the district. There's a couple others, not a monopoly, but yes, it's a slim field.
Yeah, I
there.
couldn't find
Yeah,
anybody
it's
else.
a
I was,
slim field.
listen, I was doing a little research. Like,
She's trying to save us. But we don't have to pay.
Next up is Environmental Safety Management Corp. So that's professional certified industrial hygiene support. Oh, Mr. Lynch.
Yep.
I was gonna
Dr.
say,
Dr.
isn't that
Lynch.
Dr. Lynch?
Yes, as needed.
Right. McCabe Environmental Services. Harrison Hammett, which was not a name I knew, so consulting structural engineers, and then again, that's a hourly billing rates, I guess. When we need them, though, I don't know when we've used them, that was the first I'd even heard that name, so. Hall's Commodity Hauling. Phoenix Advisors.
I have a question on that.
Go ahead.
I mean, I printed it out, and can you give me a brief explanation what it's for?
We've been using them,
Because I've
Our-
read it,
it's-
but I mean,
our financial advisor, and anytime like when we do,
Oh, that's right.
any debt
Investing.
bond referendum, or anything related to debt, we would use them. They have to give us a report every year for, the continuing disclosure,
right, I saw that, yeah.
yeah. So, and we don't, I think it's like less than 20.
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
we do.
$1,350 base fee, and then.
They also
miscellaneous.
monitor our debt, whenever an opportunity comes along, that it would be good for us to refinance our bonds.
Oh, okay.
They
okay.
will let us know.
And you worked with them when we went out to referendum, correct?
Yes, yes, they've been very, very helpful.
I just wanted the short version of all of this, that's all.
I understand.
Thank you very much. And that makes sense. I mean, that's why I thought it was, but.
Mhm.
DI Group, who we are familiar with from all the referendum process from last bunch of years. And Brunswick Urgent Care to school physicians.
That's pretty painless considering.
Yeah, because most of them
We have it.
we're familiar with. And I think it's good to go through them first, rather than have them just pop up and have questions or discussions or whatever.
That's what I
helps.
I read a question, a question from this chairman.
Sure.
B and L, the picture.
It's funny you
people?
said that, because, Mr. Moraldo and I just had that conversation that we are gonna be meeting with them to have the conversation both ways. So the one way is, look at who we utilize in the lower grades to come into the high school, or reach out to those in the high school through BNL and say, we're willing to give you additional contracts, but we need you to save us some money.
Right.
So it's gonna be basically looking at two companies.
And possibly different packages. if-
Absolutely, and
Yeah,
we agree with
like a
you.
smaller one. if
And
you
not
don't want-
getting
you don't
57
want
little
50
wallets,
yes,
because we don't
exactly.
want them.
All right.
Or put the wallets on magnets, like I told you, East
All right,
Point,
so
my
the
grandson
last
is
item
there, and they have them on
got it.
magnets.
On, the next item is, we can come back to
Yep.
school pictures if we want at the end, but we need to deal with, the last item is twofold. So the first is state aid. Ms. Allen's gonna give us a little presentation that gives us some background information and general understanding on the calculation of state aid and how it applies to Monroe. And then that kind of carries us into a conversation of the board business that's coming up, which is a resolution to shift the future budget cycle into a public vote.
All right, if I want to give a little shout out to Ms. Alvarez, she did reach out to me. I wanted to acknowledge her and had some questions about, perhaps we could bring this to a committee and then bring it to, which we're going to do it June 21st, because she's absolutely right. Some people that might be newer to coming in, and not just newer to the board, newer to the community, don't know how we get to the amount of money we do. So I just wanted to mention her because she did reach out to me. Okay, so I'm going to lean back so you can see.
I'm hesitant to hand these out after our discussion. But we figured, like, sometimes it's difficult to read off the screen and for the sake, because there's a lot of,
I like to take it home with me.
there's a lot of.
I put it in
there's
the
a lot of
magic
different
bag.
things.
Sure, you could try two-sided printing.
Yeah, I knew I was dead as soon as we got to that. I was hoping we ran out of time.
And in black and white, because it's in
Yeah.
color. Save
Mary
the
Poppins.
tone.
Yeah.
Save the trees.
And
and
it's
the-
color, I see that, yeah.
Yes.
Well, we're not, if we're gonna print, we're not gonna do it in black.
I feel like the paper's a little thicker than I.
You go above the bonds, you use bonds.
This must be that good district office.
Yeah, quality resume
They-
paper.
Of course, you know that they would hide it in my office. Can't help myself. I was behaving for most of the evening.
Okay.
I've been on fire all night.
So there are three types of state aid: equalization aid, which we get none.
It's nice to start out with that. That's positive.
Categorical aid, and grants for specific purpose, which I'm not going to talk about tonight. That's the grants fund 20. It's
We get them when we get them.
something we don't have much of. And then we have the, an explanation really of the terms that we use throughout. So the adequacy budget is the necessary funding level to provide a thorough and efficient education to every pupil in the district. It's based on a model that was created back in 2008. It begins with a baseline amount for an elementary student, and it adds additional weights for grade level since they are more expensive to educate. They have more expensive labs and such. At-risk students, which are free and reduced students, LEP students, and combined at-risk and LEP students. Then they take that number and they multiply it by a geographic cost adjustment, which is by area. So some areas, and it's very complicated, some areas are more expensive than others, so they take that into consideration. Then they add an amount for special education, and in this, under the equalization portion, they're taking 2/3 of this, and I'll go into the calculation later, but just so you know. And then speech only, which is based on a statewide average multiplied by the GCA. So this is all goes into the adequacy budget. Then they determine what your local fair share is, which is the level that the state calculates the district can afford towards the adequacy budget. Local fair share uses the aggregate income of the district's permanent residents and the equalized valuation. The equalization aid, which is your tax base, it's the difference between the adequacy budget and the local fair share. So if the local fair share is higher than the adequacy budget, there is no equalization aid. So just to look at what we've gotten over the past, since 1920 until 23-24, you can see the different categories. With equalization aid, we have not received anything. Categorical special aid has remained, it has increased a little bit each year. Security aid has been pretty much constant until this year, which we received about $500,000 more. And transportation aid, which has remained pretty constant. So our total state aid in 1920 was 6.2 million. This for 23-24, it's 11.3 million. This is just general fund. We're not doing debt service, not doing special revenue. So the increase for 23-24 over the 22-23 year is almost 1.6 million. If you look at the resident enrollment for each year, and then you divide that into the state aid, you'll see that the 23-24 year we get $1,687 per student. So the calculation for equalization aid, for the adequacy budget, which I just described, you can see that they start out with, a resident enrollment given, and they give us a growth, rate factors. They kind of like basically are giving 6-year average. They take a 6-year average. They're multiplying it by this, growth rate that they have calculated. And then they are giving the weights according to grade level. And then they give you the weights, as I mentioned, for at-risk, for LEP, and for the combined. So then you come up with an amount there. They give you a base cost, which they have decided to come up with statewide, $13,181 per student. And then they give you the geographic cost adjustment.
And we have no control over that, I just want
We
to
have
get
no
that statement.
control.
Where do they get that number, do you know?
The 13,000.
No, the gross, the geographic cost adjustment.
Yeah.
Where do they
The
get that?
commissioner of education and somebody else come up with it, and they have a chart. They give you a, there is a table which shows how much it is
It's out
per
5
area.
decimal points, so it has to be accurate.
So, yeah, so they determine what it is, so, yeah. So, so that comes to your
This one's
regular
out like 8
education
decimal.
adequacy amount. And then the special ed is based on, they take your resident enrollment and they take the state average of special ed. So it's not what we have, the number of students we have, it's the statewide average of special education students.
That's
Um,
interesting.
That is interesting.
I didn't realize that. That I
Yeah.
actually thought was district specific,
Yeah.
and that's why we had been seeing those increases,
Yeah.
but, huh. interesting.
And they do
That is
that, they
interesting. I didn't know.
apparently, so that there's not an overclassification, so districts don't try to overclassify.
To gain financial
Yeah.
funds from that, that makes sense.
But there, we are up over 20%, so.
So interestingly, yeah, so what we got, what we have in this
We're not the only
calculation
one who should get.
is 1,048, but we actually have 978. So actually, you know,
We reap the benefits fortunately because we have the children that
For
need
the
the
number of
services, of course.
students.
Right.
yes. And then they take a per pupil cost, which is again, a state average. So it's not our cost, it's a state average. Which is in excess of what the 13,000 regular ed would be. So the first calculation is all students, general and special ed, and the special ed calculation is just a special ed portion. So you're getting additional. And again, you get the GCA rate, and here they take the 2/3 of that total, unfortunately. And then you come up to 14 million for the special ed portion. Then they take the speech only, and again, it's based on a statewide average,
Mhm.
and a percentage. So we have, they give us 106, we have 1,344 per pupil. Again, the GCA rate, so you come up with 143,000. So the total adequacy budget, according to this calculation, is 110 million. Then the next page, you go to the local share calculation. So this, they take your equalized valuation as of 10/1/22, which is the most current that they have access to. So it's 11 billion for Monroe. They have a rate that they use, a standard rate. And then they divide that by 2. So you get 75 million from equalized valuation. Then they take your district income from 2020 and they have a rate, again, they apply, and again, they divide it by 2 and they come up with 67 million. So the local fair share is the combination of the 75 million from equalized valuation and the district income of 67 million, and it's 142 million. So to get the equalized aid calculation, you take your adequacy budget from the page before and you compare it to the local fair share. And because we are $32 million over,
We get
according to the calculation, we get nothing.
Wow.
So
Wow.
that is how they determine that. That's why we get money from the state. The next category of aid is categorical special ed aid. Again, it's census-based. It's based on statewide average multiplied by the district's total resident enrollment. It's based on the 21 ASSA and the 21 odd sum expenditures statewide, not ours, inflated by the CPI. They've determined, again, it's $20,000 per classified student for excess costs. So when we do the calculation here, it comes out to, this is where they take the other 1/3 of the calculation, and it comes out to $7.2 million. Unfortunately, they used 2/3 in the other formula, which we don't get any benefit from. So if it was the other way, we have the 2/3 here, we would
exactly what
get
you're saying.
14 million.
So because we are over, which looks like a negative, it's actually a positive of the 32 million or approximately, the way they do it actually doesn't help us at all.
It doesn't.
Okay.
If they had.
So you just figured out something that doesn't have any value to us, but thank you. Right, because we don't get any money.
So
Am I right? Did I sum that up correctly? Okay.
Then, so we have no control really over.
Over any of this.
Transportation aid, they have two components, based upon, rates that they provide. Again, general ed transportation is $509.58 per pupil, plus you get $13.94 per mile. Special ed transportation, $3,551 per pupil and $678 per mile. So this is the calculation below of what our district actually gets for general transportation, special transportation, and you come down to the total calculated. There is a reduction in what we actually get because when the state does determines how much state aid we're going to get, they look at last year, and then they look at, when they do all these calculations, what we should be getting, and then there's a difference, and our difference is $4 million, I think, $2 million. So they take that difference and they do that state, but for every district that isn't getting as much as they're supposed to be getting according to these formulas. And then they take a ratio basically to come up with what we should be getting, our percentage based on this. And they take what the state is able to give because of extra state aid or because they're taking aid from someone else. They take that total, multiply by that percentage, and that is what we end up getting.
So we actually get less.
We get 1.5 instead of the 2 million. So really, we got almost $500,000 less because of that.
That's unbelievable.
Because that's how they calculate.
They don't fully fund.
Because they,
So that's transportation.
Wow.
Security aid, again, two components. They have an amount that they give you, $91 per student, and then they have another amount for at-risk students. And again, they apply the GCA, and it comes down to up to $636,000 for security aid. So that's all of the state aid that we get. That's how we get it. The calculations. It's every 3 years they look at these rates and they can change.
can I ask you a question? Overall, just if you had to generalize, per pupil cost. Or you know how they have per pupil cost, like, like some schools Abbott, we don't have Abbott anymore, they call it something else, but it's
Right.
the same concept. What is ours in general?
Well, it depends. Like, so Jamesburg, where it would be.
High school level.
That's what I was thinking, it's just 15,000, right?
Special
Okay.
ed
I was
students.
thinking, I just wanted to say that because the public is watching and I think it's good, just information, because this is a lot to digest.
Yes.
So total cost per pupil in the high school?
Is higher,
15,000.
15,000.
Per pupil.
Right, so if you want, in general, if you ever have the conversation, let's say you're just speaking to somebody, you Google it,
$14,000.
right, so if you Google it, you might be in, let's say, another district, I don't want to name any names, sort of district that used to be considered an Avid, they don't use the word Avid anymore, but there's still the districts, they could be $34,000, $27,000, just thought I'd say that a lot, because it's a big difference.
But that's 14 or 15, what you mentioned. Is that including the Jamesburg students into the
At the
high
high
school?
Well, let's say that what we would charge them.
You charge them. What do the regular Monroe students, what's the cost just for them?
Well, that would be
The
the
same.
same.
That's
same,
so
same,
it's based on that
You
calculation.
don't want to,
Everything
we
is the same.
watch that what it costs us.
Okay.
Grade
Okay.
level and if they're special ed or not.
No,
Right, special ed,
Different.
okay.
So that's that. So then there's just a pie chart in the back of where the money comes from. So again, local taxes, I think. Yeah.
No, we can go over,
local tax is 84%, state aid is 7%. Everything else is pretty much, you know, low. So that we really don't have
Anywhere to go?
anywhere to go, you know, other than
Where do we get tuition from?
Jane
Mhm.
Oh,
Stay with us.
And that-
I know it's getting to that 8:30 witching hour.
You know what is, she was very excited and had so much to say earlier that she's. like,
well,
what
she
is it?
loves me on Facebook. She loves me
It's
on
a lot.
Facebook. No, it's a lot to process, so I'm
It
still
is.
processing
But
pages
it's
3
an
and 4.
excellent presentation of it,
Yeah,
though.
this
This
is
is one of
great.
those ones where you can watch it
Yeah,
and follow along. and
Nice job.
A
Yeah,
little
no,
more
no,
click in every time, you know.
and I guess that's why, because I was actually processing it and understanding it, so.
It's like School of Rock
like,
version.
yeah.
I think I'm going fast, but, and then the money, where does it go? And it, again,
Let's go.
showing, you know, where our money goes. So we just,
We have the money.
Pretty much, we have.
So then, did you want me to continue on? Do you want to take over some time from,
53% of our money goes to construction and education
Mhm.
related services, so.
Yeah.
And
we have no money. So, one of the things that we thought was important to bring to the public is that when we look at program evolutions, innovation, responsiveness, we want to make this statement aloud because of what's going on around the state of New Jersey. We have not taken anything away from our children.
For this
For
upcoming.
this
school year.
upcoming year, for the 23-24 school year, we have worked diligently as a team on it. That was Alan, Dr. Lehman, Mr. Maraldo, we did ask him to sit in because he was very involved. We are all on the same page. What can we do? Where can we prioritize? Where can we I always look at Dr. Lehman because he reminds me not to say cut, we say prioritize. Where can we prioritize what we need to have for our children? And I would like to say, and that's why this is up there on the next slide. This is Hadley Farah. We have not removed anything. So when you look at this, we have comprehensive 6-12, I'm not reading it to you, 6-12 curricular competitive STEM. We're trying in the future to expand co-curricular computer science programs, inclusive elective special area classes, Special Olympics, special services, advanced ELA, we have civics, current. And the reason why I have this all here for everybody to see, and then the next page, and we might flip back and forth, but go one more page for me on purpose. And then you'll also see about courtesy busing. I want to bring this because to say, she utilized the verbiage of adequacy, adequate, what's the word that comes before it? Efficient and adequate education, thorough and efficient education is required by the state. What we give here is what we call over adequacy. It sounds like a negative, very much so, it connotates negativity, it's actually very positive. Here's adequate, we go above and beyond the adequate. We want that. We are Monroe, we saw like the Falcons, I always make those little comments, I'm very corny, but I mean it from my heart. We want to give above and beyond to our children, and for the 23-24 school year, we are still doing it. We cannot continue within the confines of the 2% budget to do that. We did not cut busing. There are districts all around us that have got rid of busing. I've been doing a lot of interviewing, just in general, talk in general without naming other districts. Districts in general were at such a need that they cut basic skills, they cut library, they cut all those things that you do not need for the thorough and efficient education. You could have anybody in the library, librarians, media specialists is a new term. They did away with all that, and we now have candidates that are coming to us because they are unemployed. They have no busing. They've gotten rid of courtesy busing. So all of these things is something that we still have. What we'd like to say is for us to continue to give Monroe what we feel our community deserves. We are a very special, unique community, and we want to continue that for the middle, the children that have areas of special requirements, for the children that are areas that want to soar, to go on in different avenues. We want to continue that, and we need to partner to say, we need your help, and that's why the next part of the conversation, which you will take, is the finance chair. One of the things I wanted to show you on the next slide, go back again, and I won't bother you anymore, Mr. Tagliaferra, is one of the things that we've done, and we're not going to get into particulars. If you read here, it says, operational and financial efficiency through position consolidation, positional optimization through organizational reformations. In English, what we've been doing, and one of the goals that presented to the Board of Education is to look at our organizational structure and to make the comment, because the public is watching, when these positions of director of innovative, when these positions of director of athletics, co-curricular, and then supervisor of fine arts, when they came to be, they have saved the district money. They have not been additional costs for these. I sit down with Ms. Allen after I work it through with Dr. Lehman, and we look and see what works, what doesn't work. We look and see financial compensation for those that have taken on other responsibilities, like the Director of Human Resources now does grants. We look at all of these things. We had a position that was removed prior to me getting there in Ms. Allen's office, and we did not hire that position, which saved at the time X amount of dollars, almost $40,000 in benefits, and we took small amounts of money and gave it to those people doing the work. That is what optimization is. That is when you look at it and you saving money. We went ahead and created this Director of Innovative, and we needed an equity individual and looked at it. We saved approximately $63,000 by moving and maneuvering. We also, through technology, and I want to notate technology because I want to make sure that factual information is provided to the public, especially financial factual information. Monies that was then allocated, were then allocated to specific technology employees were done so after an X amount of dollars for 2 new positions was approved in the budget cycle. Is that correct, Dr. Lehman? 2 positions was approved in the budget cycle. Instead, Mr. Feldman, in his thinking out of the box, which is what we all do here, came to us, and actually he reports directly to Dr. Lehman, who went to Dr. Lehman, who then approves it with me, and said, I have a way to give additional responsibilities, another title for more higher level employees to become higher level, using the same amount of money without hiring individuals. So when we gave more monies and we gave a different title because it required more work on their part to our technology department, it was done, and we saved 2 health insurance of almost of a cost of $80,000. So this was the perfect venue for us to say this big operational financial efficiency, positional optimization. It means thinking out of the box, making things work, and all of the monies that were given to people for the work and the hard work they do to say thank you for your extra work was done not only within the budget constraints, but saving the district money. And I think that's something we need to continue to do because money is an issue. And we need to make sure that when we do this, we always think out of the box. And there's been a lot of information out there, erroneous information constantly displayed, making statements about people being given monies, and the information is erroneous. So I did feel it was appropriate. I thank you for the time to do that. And that was the verbiage that we utilized. And we are very concerned that these things like courtesy busing and all of these over adequacy programs that we bring to our children that are not required, we cannot continue that if we don't have the financial money to do it. It's that simple.
And so the bottom line here of what to understand is that 84% of our revenue opportunity comes at a cap of a 2% increase per year. 50% of our costs is that instructional piece. Another 20% of it is benefit. Those are subject to, the big chunk of that is the labor negotiations between the administrators and the Education Association, which are growing at double that 2% number. In order to sustain this moving forward, we have to get more than the 2% increase in our revenue on an annual basis. And the opportunity for the district to do that is to shift away from only accepting the 2% maximum cap from the state and shifting the budget to a public vote where we could put together a budget that is deemed fair and equitable and what we think is appropriate and in parity with what we've been able to provide year after year from the district, and bring it to the public for a vote with information, with education on what that information is, the same as we do with any budget presentation, and ask the public to vote on it. The public vote there could be a yes or a no, just like it was with the referendum, a yes or a no. We were hopeful for a yes, it was a no, we have to move forward from there. An annual budget, same thing, a yes or a no. A yes, it comes back to the district and the tax levy is adjusted accordingly to fund the budget the way it's approved. A no shifts responsibility then into the town council. That would work hopefully in partnership with the district to look closely at that budget, again, gain education and insight as to why the numbers are being asked for. Maybe there's adjustments that go up, that go down, that hold it the same. And then another opportunity, if we're not comfortable or happy with the partnership with the town on being able to satisfy the needs of the budget, then we have the opportunity to go to the county commissioner and have the county look at the budget proposal and approve it or not approve it. So there's these layers to try and get a budget that would exceed the 2% cap. And if it came back a no, then we would have to look at going,
Prioritizing.
taking those over adequacy items and shifting down to what we could afford based on the money that we have opportunity to spend. So we want to give the public the opportunity to partner with the school district in what do they want their education to look like for the kids that are in the district. So the board business that is upcoming in June is a resolution that would give, the board would give approval to the district to go to the county and apply to shift budget approval into the April voting cycle for next year, and it would hold, I believe, for about a 5-year period. No, that
No,
can be
no.
reviewed year after year, it can
Yes.
be pulled back or whatever. It's
Yes.
not a commitment. All right, so we would shift to that and see what it looks like. So does the committee have any questions or clarifications? We've been going over this the last couple of committee meetings, you know, so now we're getting to the point where we're going into board business with it, with a resolution that'll present next board meeting. I think
I'm
it's-
not in favor of it.
Okay.
I'm
would you
in
like to-
favor of keeping it to November. I'm afraid when it goes to April and you go over the cap, people are gonna see how much more might be in their taxes. And if it fails, you're losing $100,000 that we spent instead of piggybacking on the November election. And I've seen it years in the past, going back and losing and going to the town council and knowing what had to be cut, and it's what we're talking about. The non-adequacy, Ms. Chandler was talking about, that we had to cut certain things, and if you have to, you have to. I mean, there's nothing
Right,
to
but
it.
we're looking to have the voice of the public in whether they want that or not.
I understand, but I personally don't believe in it.
So
That's
who
just-
do you think should make the decision on what should be cut? Because I mean, we're talking about staff cuts. That's the first thing that's gonna go, probably
And then busing.
40, 50, 60 jobs. That if we had to balance the budget this year, 50, that's what it would have been. So,
Isn't that the number you used for the teachers on how to do their benefits too?
no, but that was to balance the budget based on what the benefits expense was going
Right.
to shift.
Part of
in.
it, which is
Right.
part of the cost of.
So where's the 40 and 50 teachers that would have to go if we shift
Because
to
we've
April?
now committed
Actually,
to
more.
a labor
It would be
contract
more.
that's in double of the 2%
Right.
growth. 2% of your 70% of the monies that you
Mhm.
spend, we don't have, it's gone. We don't have access to get that money, so.
So in balancing next budget, so in balancing next year, I already know that we need approximately 720,000, approximately, don't quote me, in order to balance the budget based upon no other costs, based upon leaving everything as is, keeping our current employees, keeping our current, employees' annual salaries. And that doesn't include the fact that, you know, we didn't pass the referendum, so now we have to sit down with Mr. Tague, which was not on this, which will be additional, you know, what part of the roof do we have to move forward with? What part of the HVAC do we have to move forward with? So when we talk about prioritizing, there's no way to sustain the teachers. Teachers used to equate, a first-year teacher would equate with health insurance, it used to equate almost $80,000-$90,000. Since the health insurance cost has come down a little bit, they may only equate $70,000, correct me. So if they only equate $70,000 and I need $720,000, if we were to go staff only, that's 100 teachers. And I'm not saying that is not what I'm saying, I'm just trying to give you an idea. Busing saves a couple $100,000. We started looking at supplies, we're working with the teachers, we're working with the principals. We just cut back on $200,000 worth of cost on supplies. Not every teacher's gonna get what they need, but we wanna make sure there's no overages. So we're at a point now where we know that we cannot sustain what we need to sustain within the 2% cap. It's numerically not possible.
And
Ms. Allen?
if I may, yeah, so the 2% cap for 23-24 this year is $2.2 million. That's, you know, that's how
Small
much, that's
percentage
very
of the
small.
$150 million
Of
budget.
budgets. So 1% is 1.1 million. It's not, if you were to go, more, 1, 2, 3, whatever percent, if you look at our salary increases or our transportation costs or special ed costs, which we've been informed that they will be going up quite a bit as well. It's very hard, and just the maintenance on the buildings, it's very hard to keep.
The other opportunity
small
with the
amount.
April vote is every April to package smaller referendums
Which you have brought
that
up.
would also be voted on for capital needs projects.
Maybe
you know,
$3 million or, we don't
for
want
the
to just
most
throw out numbers.
emergent.
Emergent, right? The roof, the
In the
HVAC.
middle of this discussion.
Oh.
And I think a point that we have to make is that this is not something that just came up
Oh, no.
this year.
Right.
This is something that was talked about prior to COVID.
Yes, we were heading in that direction.
We were heading in that direction.
Yes.
There was presentations by the former business administrator that there was dwindling surplus. There was no banked cap. COVID hit and we got a little bit of a reprieve through all of the COVID money,
monies.
the ESSER funds,
Mhm.
and that kept us afloat for a couple of years.
Mhm.
Now we're back to not having that money.
Right.
And we're back to where we were when this issue was raised a few years back. So, it's also important to know where the 2% cap came from. Under Chris Christie, he put that in. Every district, every year had to go out to their voters to vote on the
Always.
budget. He came in and during his administration, he said, if a school district can keep it to 2%, then you don't have to go out to the voters. School districts did that because it was a lot less time consuming and stressful and having to go out to your town council then and put it on the council every year, because that's what would happen. Most budgets would go down, you'd have to go to your town council. So he came up with, if you stayed under that 2%, it's not that you're not allowed to go above. If you need to go above the 2%, then you bring it to your district to vote on. I would much rather go out to the voters of Monroe and say, this is what we need. Here is what we're going to cut. If we can't afford it, if we have to stay under the 2%, they're going, not only cuts, we can't expand our programs. We see in other districts, I know one of the things was on here, just for an example, we see esports in all these other districts. It's a huge evolving area that a lot of districts have right now. We can't even begin to have that conversation. We can't begin to have the conversation of full-day kindergarten because we don't have the funds for that. That's something we can't expand.
Because we need the
We don't-
classrooms. We don't have the classrooms because we didn't.
We also can't afford to
We
pay
can't afford
more
to pay teachers.
teachers to do, double the amount of classes and go from what we are to this.
So not only would we be stagnant, we would go backwards. Pay to play was a conversation that was had, and I've been here for 20 years before, and then we did away with courtesy busing. The middle school had an area where we were there till 6 PM. We paid a teacher and an administrator was always there because we had no buses for the children to be picked up.
Busing is really busing.
Not just that, it's the busing also the radius,
It's
I know.
the busing,
It's not just after school
outside of
busing, yes.
2.5 miles.
That means children would have to either walk or get a ride within 2.5 miles.
Right.
And we
So-
provide busing
I
transportation.
think if we as a district communicate that to the community and, honest reasons why this is important for us to do, it's giving the voice back to the community. And quite honestly, there were board members that voted against it when it came to a board vote to stay under the 2% cap, because they were concerned that you were taking the voice away from the people. We hear from so many people that come to our meetings, we want our voices heard, we want transparency, this is giving it back to the community. If they say no, then they say no, and you go to the council.
You go to the council.
You know what, there are partners in this. While we operate separately, we operate collaboratively. And, they have just as much of a stake in what happens in our township as well. If they don't see the need to expand programs, or they think we should cut our busing, then that becomes a cut that comes out of it if the budget doesn't pass. But I think it's not fiscally responsible to not allow the public to have a voice in what we do with our budget.
Right. I agree. I think that we need to move forward with something like this because as it stands right now, I'm looking at saying no to any new club that wants to come forward, any new, football or, you know, whatever new sports they want to come.
Anything sounds like
we-
spending money.
We approved a lot of things over the last couple of years, you know, new clubs, new sports, new things. We have the cricket club, which I know, you know, they're having a successful year. They're gonna wanna become a sport.
Sure.
They're gonna want, and that's, you know, people are pushing that. And, you know, we have a lot of different things. We may have to start saying no to trips. We can't afford to send our teachers there. If we have at least an opportunity to have a budget that goes to 3.5%, maybe 4%, we're not looking to go to, you know, 20% increase. That's, you know, I mean, that would just be you know, a non-responsible, thing. But we need to be able to go past the 2. Like you said, we've already gone to 2% for salary. So
Mhm.
that takes up everything.
Everything.
That takes up everything. That means everything else stays the same. We don't include any increased costs of electric, of food, of, costs for
Materials.
materials, cost for toner, cost for, you know, just to bring in the curriculum.
Maintenance
committee,
of our
cost-
buildings.
Building maintenance, all
It's
of that
huge.
stuff. I think it would be doing a disservice to the district if we did not approve this and move forward with it. I think it's a very important thing, because where else are we gonna come with them? Where else is it we're gonna get the money from? You can't get blood from a stone.
Okay, so on this item, because we do have to wrap it up, because it's now
I'm sorry.
8:30 and we have
I'm
to
very
get to
sorry.
the policy meeting.
Thank you, Policy Chair, for allowing us to take
We
your
do
time.
have consensus of the committee to move it forward for the business for the full board, and we'll continue the discussion at the full board meeting on the 21st. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
That